The desert woke slowly under a pale sky where the wind carried dust and old memories across the open land. The Apache girl named Ayana hung upside down from a rough wooden frame, her long hair brushing the earth as blood rushed to her head. Her world swayed between pain and fading light. She had been left there as a warning to others, her strength tested by cruelty, yet her spirit still burned quietly inside her chest. Ayana thought her people and the songs her mother once sang by the fire. She remembered laughter and the warmth of belonging. Those memories were the only thing holding her to the present moment. As time passed, her arms ached and her breath grew shallow, yet she refused to let fear claim her soul. She closed her eyes and whispered prayers in her heart, asking the land to remember her if she did not survive. Far across the plains, a lone rancher rode, slowly guiding his horse toward the distant hills. He was a man shaped by solitude and hard choices. His name was Eli, and his life had been marked by loss and long silence. He traveled these lands to escape his past, seeking peace in open spaces where no one asked questions. As he rode, he noticed something unusual. Against the horizon, a dark shape swaying unnaturally in the wind. Eli felt a strange pull urging him closer. His horse sensed it too and slowed, as if the land itself demanded respect. When he drew nearer, he realized the shape was a young woman, bound and hanging upside down. His heart tightened as anger rose within him. He had seen suffering before, but this felt different. It felt like a test placed in his path by fate. He dismounted quietly and approached with caution, scanning the area for danger. The Apache girl opened her eyes at the sound of footsteps. Her vision blurred, yet she saw a figure standing between her and the sun. She expected more cruelty, but instead she saw a concern in his face. Eli spoke, gently telling her she was not alone and that he would help. With careful hands, he cut the ropes and lowered her slowly to the ground. He wrapped her in his coat and helped her sit upright. Ayana gasped as blood returned to her limbs, pain sharp yet life-giving. She looked at Eli with disbelief and gratitude, unable to speak, but understanding that the stranger had chosen compassion over fear. Eli gave her water and waited patiently, allowing her strength to return. He did not ask questions, knowing some wounds needed silence. First, the desert seemed to hold its breath, as if witnessing a turning point. Ayana finally found her voice and thanked him softly. Her words carried away to survival and hope. As the sun climbed higher, Eli knew he could not leave her alone. He offered to take her to safety to his ranch, where she could rest and heal. Ayana hesitated, knowing trust was dangerous, yet something in his eyes felt honest. She nodded, accepting his help, and together they began a slow journey toward an uncertain future. The land stretched endlessly around them, but for the first time in many days, Ayana felt the presence of hope. She sensed that this meeting was not an accident, but the beginning of a path neither of them had planned. The desert watched silently as two wounded souls walked forward, carrying pain, courage, and the possibility of change. The journey toward the ranch moved slowly under the burning sun. Eli walked beside his horse, keeping his pace gentle, so Ayana could lean on him when her strength failed. Her legs trembled with every step, yet she refused to stop. Pride and survival pushed her forward. She did not want to be seen. As weak again, the desert stretched endlessly, but now it felt less like a prison and more like a road leading somewhere new. Eli watched her quietly. He had lived alone for many years, choosing silence over connection, yet seeing Ayana struggle awakened something he had buried long ago, a sense of responsibility mixed with regret. He remembered a time when it failed to help someone in need, and how that memory haunted him at night. This time, he would not turn away. As they walked, Ayana listened to sounds of the land, the wind brushing through dry grass, the distant cry of a bird, the steady breathing of the horse. These sounds grounded her, reminding her that she was still alive. She focused on each step, feeling pain, but also feeling life return to her body. She wondered why the stranger had helped her when others had chosen cruelty. When they reached a small rise in the land, Eli pointed toward clustered buildings in the distance. His ranch stood alone, surrounded by open fields and worn fences. It was not grand, but it was solid, built with patience and hard work. Ayana felt unsure, yet she sensed safety there, a place where no ropes waited for her. At the ranch, Eli guided her inside the main house. He laid her down on a simple bed near the window where sunlight filtered softly. He brought water, clean cloth, and food, speaking little, but moving with care. His actions carried respect, not pity. Ayana noticed this and felt a quiet relief. She had endured enough humiliation to last a lifetime. As her body rested, her mind wandered. She thought about how close she had been to death and how easily her story could have ended hanging beneath the open sky. She wondered if her people would ever know what happened, or she would remain a forgotten shadow in the desert. The thought filled her with sadness, but also determination. She had survived for a reason. Eli sat nearby, sharpening a knife, not as a threat, but as a habit his eyes often drifted toward her, checking her breathing, making sure she remained awake. He did not know what the future held, but he knew he could not abandon her again. The ranch felt different, with another presence in it, less empty, less haunted. As the day passed, Ayanna gained enough strength to sit up. She asked Eli why he lived alone in such a remote place. Her voice was calm, yet curious. Eli hesitated, then spoke about his past. He shared that he once had a family and dreams of building community, but violence had taken him away. He retreated to the ranch, believing solitude was safer than loss. Ayanna listened carefully. She understood loss deeply. Her people had lost land, freedom, and lives to endless cruelty. She told Eli about her tribe, about the stories of strength passed down through generations. She spoke of resilience and a belief that suffering did not define the soul. Her words carried quiet power, and Eli felt them settle into his heart. That night the desert cooled and stars filled the sky. Eli prepared a small fire outside and helped Ayanna sit near it. The warmth eased her pain, and the flames reminded her of home. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply, feeling connected to something ancient, and enduring the land no longer felt like an enemy, but a witness to survival. Eli realized that saving her had also saved something within himself. He felt purpose returning slowly, like a forgotten skill, remembered through action. He promised himself that this ranch would become more than a hiding place. It would become a shelter, a place of healing for both of them. As the fire crackled softly, Ayanna looked up at the stars and felt hope rise again, not loud, not sudden, but steady. She did not know what challenges lay ahead, but she knew she would face them, standing, not hanging, the desert night wrapped around them. And for the first time since her capture, Ayanna slept without fear, dreaming of strength, freedom, and a future shaped by courage. Morning arrived quietly at the ranch as pale light spilled across the fields. Ayanna woke to the sound of wind moving to the tall grass, and for a moment she forgot where she was in memory. Returned slowly, the ropes to pain, the stranger who became her protector. She sat up, carefully feeling soreness, but also strength returning to her body. Each breath felt like a victory. Eli was already awake, working outside, repairing a broken fence. His movements were steady and focused, shaped by years of routine. When he noticed Ayanna standing at the doorway, he paused and nodded with a gentle smile. He asked if she was strong enough to walk a little. She agreed, knowing that movement would help her heal. They walked slowly around the ranch. The land stretched wide open, dotted with cattle and old wooden posts. Eli explained how he built the ranch with his own hands, how each fence and wall carried hours of labor and loneliness. Ayanna listened closely, sensing that every word he spoke carried years of unspoken emotion. The ranch was not just land, it was his refuge from grief. As they walked, Ayanna shared more of her story. She spoke of her capture and how she had been separated from her people. She described the fear of not knowing if she would ever return, or if her name would fade into silence. Eli listened without interruption, respecting the way of her words. He felt anger rise at the cruelty she endured, but he kept his voice calm, knowing rage would not heal her. Later that day, clouds gathered in the distance, bringing a rare coolness to the air. Eli prepared the horses. Sensing a change in weather, he suggested they ride out to a nearby spring where the water was clean and the land peaceful. Ayanna hesitated, but agreed, wanting to feel freedom again, even if only for a short ride. Riding beside Eli, she felt the rhythm of the horse beneath her, reminding her of rides with her tribe. When she was younger, those memories brought both comfort and sorrow, yet she held on to them, knowing they were part of who she was, not something to be erased. The wind brushed against her face, carrying the scent of earth and rain. At the spring, they dismounted and rested near the water. Eli filled canteens while Ayanna knelt, touching the cool surface. She whispered a quiet thanks to the land for sparing her life. Eli watched respectfully, sensing this moment was sacred. The connection she had with the earth was something he had lost long ago. As they sat, Eli noticed movement near the hills. Riders appeared in the distance, silhouettes against the sky. His body tense instinctively. He knew trouble. When he saw it, Ayanna followed his gaze and felt fear tighten her chest. She recognized the signs of danger her captors were searching. Eli acted quickly. He guided Ayanna back toward the ranch, choosing a hidden path through low ground. He told her to stay calm and trust him. His voice carried authority and reassurance. Together, they moved swiftly, using the land for cover. The riders passed without noticing, leaving dust and silence behind. Back at the ranch, Eli secured the gates and windows. His expression grew serious. He explained that danger might return and that staying hidden would be necessary. Ayanna nodded, understanding the risks, yet she refused to be afraid again. She told Eli she would not be helpless. She would stand and fight if needed. That evening they planned quietly. Eli shared what weapons and supplies he had. Ayanna spoke of strategies her people used to survive. Pursuit. Their conversation felt like a partnership forming, built on mutual respect rather than fear. Eli realized she was not just someone he saved, but someone strong, capable, and wise. As night fell, rain began to fall softly, cooling the land to sound, with soothing, washing away dust, and Payne Ayana sat by the window, watching the drops trace paths on the glass. She felt something shift. Inside of the fear that once controlled her began to loosen its grip. Eli stood nearby looking out at the dark horizon. He knew his life had changed. Forever the ranch was no longer a place to hide, but a place to defend and protect. He accepted this truth without regret. As thunder rolled faintly in the distance, Ayana closed her eyes and breathed deeply. She felt alive, present, and purposeful. The land that once witnessed her suffering now witnessed her strength part. 3 ended with both of them standing ready, knowing that whatever came next they would face it together, guided by courage, resilience, and the quiet promise of hope. The rain continued through the night, soaking the land and turning dust into dark, rich earth. Morning came heavy with clouds and the smell of wet soil. Ayana woke with a sense of urgency. As if the land itself was warning her, she stepped outside, slowly feeling stronger. With each breath, the pain in her body had not vanished, but it no longer ruled her. Eli was already awake, checking the perimeter of the ranch. He studied the tracks in the mud, and his face hardened. He saw signs that riders had been close during the night. Circling, watching, waiting his past as a rancher and survivor told him danger was no longer distant. It was near and patient. Ayana joined him and followed his gaze. She recognized the patterns left behind by horses, and boots her people taught her how to read the ground like a story written by careless feet. She told Eli that the men would return soon and that they would not stop. Easily silence followed. But it was not filled with fear, it was filled with preparation. They spent the morning working together, reinforcing weak points around the ranch. Eli moved with determination, while Ayana worked beside him, tying knots, setting traps, and marking escape paths. Her hands remembered skills passed down through generations. She felt pride in using knowledge that once kept her people alive. As the hours passed, Eli noticed something changing within himself. The loneliness that had shaped his life was fading, replaced by purpose. He was no longer defending empty land, but protecting a life of future. He realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to stand despite it. By afternoon, the clouds broke and sunlight returned harsh and bright. Ayana stood on a small rise, scanning the horizon. Her eyes were sharp, her posture strong. She was no longer the girl who hung upside down waiting for death. She was a survivor, ready to reclaim her fate. The riders appeared again just before sunset. Their figures moved slowly toward the ranch, confident and careless. They believed fear would keep their victims silent. They believed isolation meant weakness. They were wrong. Eli signaled to Ayana, and they moved into position. The ranch became quiet, every sound deliberate, every movement planned. The wind carried a scent of dust and sweat as tension built. The first rider crossed the boundary and triggered a trap, causing chaos among the group. Horses reared, and shouted warnings echoed across the land. Ayana acted without hesitation. She moved swiftly, using the terrain as cover, just as her ancestors taught her. She distracted the riders, drawing them away from Eli and the house. Her heart pounded, but her mind remained clear. Focused survival demanded clarity, not panic. Eli defended the ranch with controlled strength. His aim was precise, his movements efficient. He did not fight with hatred, but with resolve. Each action was driven by the promise he made to protect not just land, but life. The riders were unprepared for resistance, and confusion spread quickly. As the confrontation unfolded, Ayana faced one of the men who had helped capture her. She felt anger rise, but she did not let it control her. She stood tall, meeting his eyes, and in that moment, he saw not a victim, but a force shaped by endurance. He turned and fled, fear finally finding him. When the dust settled, the riders retreated, disappearing into the distance, leaving silence behind. The land seemed to exhale, relieved and watchful. Eli and Ayana stood still, listening for any sign of return. When none came, they allowed themselves to breathe. Exhaustion followed, but so did relief. Ayana felt a powerful shift inside her. She had faced her past and survived again, this time standing on her own ground beside someone who respected her strength. Eli looked at her with admiration, knowing he had witnessed something rare, courage born from suffering and shaped into wisdom. As night fell, they sat together near the fire. The flames reflected in their eyes, telling stories older than words. Ayana spoke softly about her people and the belief that trials were lessons meant to forge the spirit. Eli listened to know his own trials had led him to this moment. The ranch was quiet again, but was no longer empty. It was alive with meaning, shared struggle, and mutual respect. Part foreclosed with both of them understanding that the fight was not just against enemies, but against the past, and together they had taken a powerful step toward freedom, healing, and a future built by choice rather than fear. The days after the confrontation passed with a strange calm. The land seemed to settle, as if it accepted what had happened. Ayana woke each morning feeling stronger, her body healing, and her spirit standing taller. She moved through the ranch with confidence, helping Eli with daily work, riding, checking water, and tending the animals. Each task reminded her that life continued beyond pain. Eli noticed how naturally she fit into the rhythm of the ranch. Her presence brought balance where there had only been silence. He found himself speaking more, sharing small stories, laughing at moments he once ignored. The weight he carried for years began to lift, replaced by a sense of shared purpose. One evening, Ayanna asked Eli about the land beyond the ranch. She wanted to know the paths, the rivers, the places where her people might travel. Eli showed her maps and landmarks pointing toward distant valleys and old trails. He offered to help her find her way back. When the time came, his voice held no hesitation, only support. Ayanna felt gratitude, but also conflict. Part of her longed to return to her tribe, to reclaim her place and share her story. Yet another part of her recognized that this ranch had become a place of rebirth. She wondered if survival sometimes created new paths instead of returning to old ones. As they worked together, they spoke about strength and freedom. Ayanna explained that her people believed true freedom came from knowing who you are, even when the world tries to strip it away. Eli listened and realized how much he had forgotten about himself in hiding. He had survived, but he had not truly lived. One afternoon, they rode out to the hills where wildflowers grew after the rain. Ayanna stopped her horse and smiled, seeing colors spread across the land. It reminded her that beauty could rise even after hardship. She gathered a few flowers and left them on a stone, offering thanks to the earth for guiding her. Eli watched her and felt a quiet respect. He understood now that saving her life had also challenged him to face his own fears. He had built walls around his heart, just as strong as the fences around his land, and now those walls were breaking. That night, as they sat under the stars, Ayanna spoke about the night she thought she would die. She described the moment she let go of fear and accepted whatever came. Eli listened in silence, feeling the weight of her courage. He realized that courage was not loud. It was a quiet choice made again and again. Eli shared his own turning point the night he lost his family and chose isolation as protection. He admitted that he believed caring would only bring pain. Ayanna responded gently, telling him that pain and love often walk together, but one should not deny the other. Her words settled deeply within him. In the days that followed, Ayanna began teaching Eli skills from her people: how to track, how to listen to land, how to move with intention. Instead of force, Eli shared his knowledge of ranching and survival in harsh conditions. Their exchange was equal, respectful, and grounding. They were no longer rescuer and rescued, but partners learning from each other. Ayanna felt her identity strengthening, not just as a survivor, but as a woman with purpose. She knew she would carry her story forward, whether she returned to her tribe or built a new life. She was no longer defined by what had been done to her. Eli felt something he had not felt in years: hope, not the fragile kind, but the steady kind built on action and trust. He realized that the ranch could become a place of refuge for others who had nowhere to go, a place where strength was nurtured, not broken. As the sun set, painting the sky with fire and gold, Ayanna stood beside Eli, looking out over the land. She felt peace mixed with determination. Whatever path lay ahead, she would walk it upright with her head high. Part 5 closed with both of them standing at a crossroads, not marked by fear, but by choice. The land had tested them, and they had endured together. They had transformed survival into meaning and pain into strength, preparing for a future shaped by courage, compassion, and the unbreakable will to live. The final morning arrived calm and clear. The sky stretched wide and blue, as if offering a blessing to whatever choice would be made. Ayanna stood outside the house, feeling the cool air fill her lungs. She felt complete in a way she had not known before. Her body carried scars, but her spirit stood whole. Eli joined her, carrying 2 saddlebags filled with supplies. He did not speak at first. He knew this moment mattered, and words needed care. Ayanna looked at him and understood this was a day she would decide her path, not because she was forced, but because she was free. They walked together to the edge of the ranch, where the land opened into many directions. Each trail carried possibility. One led toward the mountains and the lands where people might be. Another led back to the ranch and the life they had begun to rebuild together. Ayanna closed her eyes and placed her hand on the earth. She listened the way her ancestors taught her, not for voices, but for truth. She felt gratitude for the land that tested her and for the man who chose to stand when others turned away. She spoke calmly, saying she would return to her people, not to escape the past, but to face it, to tell her story, to remind them that survival was strength and that hope could rise even from the darkest moments. She said she would carry the ranch and Eli in her heart as part of her journey. Eli nodded slowly, though part of him felt the ache of separation. He did not feel loss, he felt pride. He told her that the ranch would always be open to her and to anyone who needed shelter. He promised to live differently, not hidden, but present, building a place where compassion guided strength. They embraced not in sadness, but in respect, two lives changed by choice, and courage. Ayanna mounted her horse and looked back one last time. She saw not a lone rancher, but a man reborn by purpose. As she rode away, the land watched silently. The trail ahead was uncertain, but she rode upright, steady, and unafraid. She was no longer defined by ropes or cruelty. She was defined by survival wisdom and the power to choose her future. Eli stood until she disappeared into the horizon. Then he turned back toward the ranch, feeling lighter. The land felt alive again, filled with meaning. He began planning not fences, but spaces of welcome, not walls, but paths. Days later, Ayanna reached her people. She told her story not with anger, but with strength. Her survival became a lesson, her courage became a song, and her name was spoken with honor, not sorrow. Far away, the ranch continued to stand strong, a place where suffering once passed through, and was transformed into hope, into purpose, into proof that one act of courage can change many lives. The story ended not with an ending, but with continuation, two paths moving forward, shaped by the same truth, that even when the world tries to break you, the human spirit can rise, heal, and choose light over fear.